Hello, and welcome to the latest installment in our UXDX online series. I hope you're as excited as I am for the talk that we have this evening. Before we jump into that, I want to give you a very quick introduction to UXDX and why we host these sessions. So at UXDX, our kind of mission is that the world is full of bad software. And I don't mean that like it's down to the people and we're writing bad code and things like that. It's the fact that it just doesn't do what we want it to do. And my go-to example here is always banking. I have one of the kind of new digital first banks as well as a very old bank. And the experience on the apps are worlds apart, even though technically they do the same thing, but I know which one I reach for more and therefore I do more business with. And we believe that it's not actually down to the people, it's down to the environments that people are working in. And in particular, we believe that, or our mission is to help companies build an environment that can't build bad software. And how we want to do that is by shifting away from waterfall or water scrum fall projects, where you're locking in your scope at the start, to doing truly empowered autonomous teams, where they can iterate and figure out what customers care about and also make sure that the business value is delivered. Now, it's really easy to say, but that's really hard to do in practice. And that's where our talks at these sessions come in. Now, nobody's going to talk about everything about shifting, but we always ask people to share how they're improving their part of the process so that you can learn from that and hopefully improve. And hopefully you can come up with some questions. So as you're listening to the talk, really think about, is there anything that you'd like to know more about? Because our speakers do really appreciate getting some questions, and you can type that in on whichever platform you're watching it on, and I'll put those questions through to the speakers. But that's enough about me. We were going to have a talk from Yini, but unfortunately, due to some scheduling mix-up, that is not happening today. But we do have another amazing talk, which is about designing habit-forming routines to excel and monetize your skills, from Aadhya, who's the design director at Shnorh. So I'd like to welcome Aadhya to the stage. Over to you, Aadhya.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. And I hope I do justice, even though you guys might be expecting someone else today. But just to get you an introduction, today's talk, I want to try and help you understand how you can create habits and how you can form routines through your habits. And with the routines, you can enhance your skill and lead to some monetizing opportunities and be successful in whichever field you choose to. And that's the goal of today's talk. Uh, Before we get to the deep dive, I wanted to take you through this journey of skill mastery. So we will go through these in a structured way today in this presentation, and you will find ways to identify the niches and where you are most effective and where you can actually be of value. And these routines that will support your skill development, your personal growth, and also your professional growth. And that's the aim for today. But before we go into that, I want to talk about understanding habits. But before that is, what is a habit or what are habits? Habits are automatic behaviors that are formed through repeated action. They can be beneficial or even detrimental at times, but they have an influence on our daily choices. And through daily choices, even our long term outcomes have influence about our habits. So, developing positive habits is a key to any success that you want, whether that's in your personal life or in your professional life. And that's very important for you to understand. So, the part one of this is understanding the science of habit forming. This is called a habit loop. This is a habit forming process that involves three key components, which is the trigger, cues, routines, and reward. By understanding this loop, you need to also understand, to be effective in any habit formation, it takes 21 days to acquire a new skill set. So, consistency in following this loop is very essential. So, the triggers are what initiates the behavior, what makes us begin a habit. The routine is the consistency of creating that skill set and that habit into building a routine. And lastly is the reward. If you don't have a sense of achievement or reinforcement of a behavior, it will never become a habit that you can consistently follow. And that's why this habit loop is very important. Moving on to what's the basis of habit formation. So, the impact of any habit is on the performance. Habits play significant role in the performance across various fields that we're in. And positive habits can actually increase productivity, sharpen our focus, and also lead to better stress management, especially in today's world where we all seem to be in chaos. And ultimately, this contributes to the success in our professional environment. So the basal ganglia, as you can see in the front, is a crucial part for which handles our motor skills and also is a crucial element of habit formation. Without this, no habits can actually be formed. Second one is the dopamine reinforcement. Now, we all understand what dopamine is, but when it releases the happy hormones into our brain, that's when we are able to actually reinforce the habits that we're trying to form and also the skill set that we're trying to develop in the future. This makes us more likely to repeat this behavior over and over again, which then forms a routine. And lastly is the neuroplasticity, which is refers to our brain's ability to form new neural connections. This allows us to actually develop new habits and develop new skills. That's why this is important. Now, moving on to how can you practically apply the science of this into your daily life. And this is done through what is called a habit stacking. Now, for example, I wake up in the morning and I pour myself a coffee. Pouring myself a coffee is an existing habit that I follow. But if I want to practice a new habit, as soon as I get my coffee, I actually spend 20 minutes of my time trying out my new skill that I want to acquire. What this does is actually it stacks your old behavior with your new skill that you want to adopt, which tricks your brain into something we call association. Because this is the mental link between our old habit and our new skill that we want to develop as a habit. This is actually called the power hour. This is when we actually spend that time using an old habit to trick our brain into believing the new habit has the same hormones and same science behind it. And this makes us more applicable to use that new skill set and form into a habit that will then be part of our daily life. Part two of this is actually the attention side. The attention economy in today's world is pretty much very low because focused attention is the most valuable resource that we have, but it's very difficult in today's distracted environment. The neuroscience of deep work and the flow state, it highlights the importance of concentrated effort. Now, how do you actually do that in a world which is always chaotic and you're stressed in multiple ways? The practical strategy is starts with implementation intentions. You need to know that you are going to work on this skill at this time for this period of time and this location. When you have a specific action plan for developing a new skill, that's when you're more likely to actually work on it. And then there's the Pomodoro technique, which is basically you spend 25 minutes out of the 30 minutes in deep focused work. And then you spend the rest of the 5 minutes just away from your work environment. Just step out of it, go do something fun, go take a walk, but distance yourself from your working environment. Then is the digital minimalism, which I understand is very difficult in today's age, but it's important to drop your phones away, your iPad, whatever is distracting you, keep it away and just focus on your work. And lastly is the environmental design. And this is what I truly believe in. We cannot sit on our bed and try to work. There is no way that you will be able to focus as much as you would at a desk. So it's important to keep your work environment and your relaxing environment separate from each other. And a great book that will re-emphasize this, and if you want to read more about this, is Deep Work, which is a book that I highly recommend for you to read. It's by Cal Newport, and he's amazing. But moving on. Now I want to talk about the deliberate practice and skill excellence. See, there's a science behind how we actually behave, and this is what comes to the research that Andreas Ericsson actually emphasizes on. It's the role of targeted feedback loops in expert performance. It's very scary to get critical feedback, but it's very essential, especially if you're someone using a new skill or you want to try and form a new habit. The myelin sheet formation actually strengthens the neural pathways that we discussed in part one. And this allows us to be consistent in our practice and in our practical application of a new skill. Also, designing deliberate practice. See, routines are what? Routines are simple as setting clear, specific micro goals. Don't have to make a huge list of things that you have to do that it goes on and on forever. Just have to break down your big goal into smaller, more bite sized tasks that you can actually achieve and also feel a sense of accomplishment. And then, of course, is measuring your progress. Feedback is essential, but if you don't know if you're actually being consistent and actually tracking your progress, how do you know how much you have achieved? So it's important to track the progress that you're making. Part four, we talk about design thinking. Now, don't be dismayed if you're not someone in the design field. This is just about designing your routine and designing your life and how you can use that to actually monetize the skills that you have developed or will develop. And this is broken into 5 steps. First is the empathize, which is identifying the market requirement. See, any skill that you are trying to build on, trying to cultivate, has to have a value that you can add to the market. So, where actually does your skill set, whether that's existing or the new one, fit into the market requirement? Then it's a definition. What is the value or unique value that you can add to the people around you, and how can your skill actually be of benefit to people around you? That's when you're able to sell that skill set that you have. Then it's the ideate. Now you understand that in today's world, we can't just have one stream of income. We have to have multiple streams of revenue. And that's when you actually create multiple pathways with the different skill set and the array of skill set that you have. And this allows you to transform your monetization structure from just one path to multiple paths. Then it's the prototyping. See, nothing works without testing. So it's important to see your minimal viable offering. Break down your skill set into groups and see which group actually can build and help you monetize your skill set. It's not as easy as I say, but it's very easy when you break it down into smaller bite-sized structures. And lastly, is to test it. Now, it's always important to refine it. So be flexible with whatever routine that you're establishing yourself with. Important to be flexible with it so you can reiterate, because the market keeps changing. So it's important that your skill set and your skill offering also changes with the market requirement. So with that, we move on to the actual daily disciplinary actions that you can take so that you have a sustainable growth. Now, this is just to summarize everything that we spoke about today. First one is the morning ritual design. The power of your morning routine is you're setting the foundation and you're priming your brain to actually set the pace for the rest of the day. If you do this consistently over the next 21 days, your habit will be so reinforced that you will not have to think about it twice. It'll just become part of your daily routine. And that's why we call it the power hour. This is when the first 20 minutes of you moving, doing something new, whether that's meditating, movement, prayer time, mindfulness, skill practice, whatever your power hour looks like, remember that that hour sets the foundation for your day. Then is, of course, the consistent drivers, which is accountability, having a partner who is there to motivate you, who helps you maintain when you're feeling down, when you had a busy day and you can't do the new habit again. That's when you need someone to be your cheerleader. And then there's the environmental design that we spoke about. Make sure you have a separate place that triggers your focus center. As soon as you enter this environment, you know that your brain knows and your brain understands that you need to work now with zero distractions. That's essential. And of course, lastly, is you need to shift your mindset. Shift your mindset from I should practice this daily to I am someone who practices this daily. This is also called the habit scorecard, because nothing happens without actually giving yourself that sense of accomplishment. This is when you actually conduct weekly assessment of the behavior that you're trying to reinforce. So you know that where are the places that you're struggling and what have you done right. This scorecard will not only reinforce the small wins, but will also allow you to be flexible and tweak how your routine is being formed. Seems like a lot of work, but I promise you it's worth it. Now comes to the last, which is your action plan. This is the breakdown of what your habit formation actually will look like if you practice it consistently over the course of multiple days. The first 21 days is when you're actually building the initial neural link. This is when we call the association, so that your brain understands that it needs to start prepping for a new skill to be added. Then comes day 22 to 26. This is when you're actually strengthening this new routine that you have formed. We formed it in the first 21 days. Now it is how do you consistently strengthen and achieve through that routine that you have established. And finally, it's beyond the day 66, which is you have now used this routine so much that it's integrated into your body. Now it's time to transform that and actually monetize using that skill set. So, just to wrap up what we discussed is the compound effect of habit-based skill development is extremely important and extremely satisfying. It might seem extremely technical because we did talk about the sciences, but if you understand that, you are going to be successful no matter what habit, what skill you want to use, whether that's for your personal life or your professional life. And I promise you, your environment will also change with it. Second is have patience. None of this is easy and none of this is an overnight success kind of story. It takes time. So trust yourself, be consistent, but also have a little patience with yourself because nothing is that easy that it happens overnight. Then, of course, for any kind of long term success, if you want to achieve your ultimate goal, the only thing you can do is stay motivated and stay consistent. And I would love to hear more about your journey, so do stay connected. But before we move on, I have one more thing that I want to share with you, which is how do we make money? See, now we understood the science, the basis, and what skills and habit forming look like behind the scenes. But now, how do we actually make money with it? I have divided it into 5 key components, starting with building a personal brand. See, I have been an introvert for most of my life. I am not somebody who likes to speak to people. I did not know what it meant to have a personal brand. But I took up a challenge on LinkedIn where I used to do daily videos every day, and I'm at 135 days now of taking videos consistently. This has not only helped me get out of my shell, but also helped me build a personal brand. And this is important for you to understand that showcasing your expertise on an online platform or creating a portfolio of your skills or even like using social media to connect with people, this allows you to actually showcase your unique story because everyone has something unique about them. It's important to show that so that you build your personal brand. 2 is networking. Now, I know a lot of people have said networking and it seems like a bad word at this point, but trust me, there's nothing that's going to replace building relationships. Whether that's building it while you're in a conference, whether you're online platforms, whether it's on social media, whatever it is, networking is extremely important, extremely crucial for any kind of success. Third is maintaining and sustaining your motivation and excellence. It's very difficult when you're at day 10, 15, and you're so close to your goal, but all you want to do is give up because it's very hard. That's when you actually have to find inspiration, whether that's through your people around you, your peers, reflecting on your daily goals that you have achieved, and positive reinforcement. This helps you with your momentum and helps you not give up. 4 is, of course, the skill development and things that change because you're adapting your routine over time. No routine should be rigid. It takes the market changes, the requirement changes, you as a person grow. So having flexibility can help maintain engagement and effectiveness. And lastly, measure your progress and your success, because when you look back, when you're on top of that mountain, you've achieved everything that you have. When you look back on day one, that's when you know that your all the lessons, all the hardship has been worth it. It has been worth it because you're able to identify the strengths that you have developed, and things that you might have to still tweak at the top of the mountain, and how you can be flexible but also adjust to be more successful in whatever you do. With that, I want to say thank you so much for your time today. Please do scan the QR code and stay in touch. I always love to hear about your journey, and I hope whatever we spoke about today in this presentation actually helps you. And I hope it helped you as much as it did help me, because I've seen transformation practically happen. So I hope this helps you as well. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, skill development is one of those things that is just kind of critical, but difficult to do, very
Yeah.
difficult to do. So if anybody has any questions out there, please write them on whichever platform you're watching on, and I'll put those questions through to Aadhya. But I'm going to start actually, because one of the things that I've struggled with, well, actually, it's two things. One is I want to be good now. Like I get frustrated if I can't solve something immediately. So what tips do you have for breaking it down? Because you said you have to kind of break it down into something small. But how do you personally, or do you have any examples of how you broke that down and got over that hurdle of thinking of how pointless is this tiny little thing?
Absolutely. I mean, I would love to be an overnight success. I think all of us would love to be successful, but it's not just about breaking your goals into micro-sized pieces. It's about getting over the fear. The first step to any kind of skill development is the fear. It's like, what will people think? It's going to be hard. Once you get over that, then it's about consistency. So all you need to do is take that first step. Then the second and third becomes very easy to take it. For example, I tried to start baking and cooking, and I couldn't just become this French gourmet chef overnight. Right, it was not the first thing that I could do. I had to burn a lot of cookies and a lot of bread in order to become successful. So don't fear failure, because that's where the lessons are. See, if you're successful on the first go, you're not learning anything. So not worrying about failing, and just trying it out and having fun in the process, that really helps when you're forming a habit.
Right. And yeah, the other thing that I was wondering about was you mentioned there was kind of two things. There was the sorry, let me just look at my notes. The consistency driver and the accountability partner. So what in a workplace environment where you're trying to kind of pick up maybe a new work-related skill, what examples can you give people about consistency drivers, things to like trigger them to do it?
I mean, I think it's about not sitting for many like long hours, because we tend to believe that this very complicated to-do list is how we achieve a goal. It doesn't have to be, whatever your work tasks look like. If you say, okay, I'm going to spend 20 minutes on this and nothing can distract me, I'm just going to focus on this particular task, and then I'll take 5 minutes of break and just step away from the work in actuality. Don't think about any work, just go and spend 5 minutes doing anything except thinking about that task, because your brain needs the rest. Your brain needs time to actually come up with new ideas or new things that you want to add maybe into a presentation. And this happens to me a lot of the time, when because I'm in the creative field. So for us, my brain doesn't really stop at any time. It's constantly running for new ideas, new ways of approaching, new problem solving. And I think most of us are in the industry where we don't get away from the work, because it's mostly our brain that works. It's not like physical work that we can get out of. So that's when you understand that you need a break. Now, coming to consistency, I think reminding yourself that I need to do this every day and trying to do it at the same time. That's why I called it the power hour, because I understand that my first hour of the day has to have these four things that I have to do. Whether that's meditating, whether that's journal writing, whether that's having my coffee and going for a workout. That happens every day at 7 a.m., for example. And I don't switch that routine, because that's how you're consistent. So try to live a more boring life, because do the same thing at the same time. It'll really help. Yeah.
Right. No, it's a really good point, because then otherwise you start breaking habit, and
Yeah,
it gets easy to drop the things that you really should be doing.
absolutely.
Um, the accountability partner one really rings to me, because particularly with fitness, the fittest I've ever been was when myself and a few friends used to meet for lunch runs and go for a run, and you wouldn't miss it because you had to meet them. So they were kind of accountability partners. And in a workplace, though, where you don't really want to admit weakness, you don't really want to kind of show that you don't know something. A lot of people have that kind of imposter syndrome. How do you get an accountability partner in a work environment?
I mean, it doesn't have to be another person. I think that's the big misconception. It doesn't have to be like your career bestie or anyone who's in the office with you. It can just be you. For example, what I do as practice is Friday, as soon as I get back from work, or Saturday morning. That's when I actually sit down and I reflect on my week. I reflect on everything that I have done. Have I consistently had those days that I have followed the habit? What are the trigger points that have made me either stressful or made me give up on something, whatever that is? And it's like my self reflection moment. That's when I spend time with myself. That has really helped because it keeps you in check and keeps you honest to what you're doing. Having a notebook that actually charts out all of the plans that you've had is really helpful, because then I can go back to day one and see what I missed out. And then I can tweak my next week to help with the next. So it doesn't have to be a physically a different person. It doesn't even have to be someone who is in the workspace with you. It can just be a family member or someone who is completely distanced from your work life, but can help you understand those patterns that maybe you're not seeing. So it doesn't have to be only about the work, even though the topic is about the work. So
Okay. Yeah, there was, it reminds me of, I think there was an app or something that if you don't do something, you'll
you
donate money to the NRA, or like whichever side of the political spectrum, it'll donate it to the opposite side. So it makes you make sure you do it, because you really don't want that.
that's an
That
amazing punishment reward system that I have yet to try. I have to.
brilliant. All right. Well, I think that's actually bringing us close to time. So I just want to thank you once again for sharing about how you can build and grow habits, because that's something that we all need to do all the time. Everybody needs to improve in different ways. So thank you once again for sharing.
Sorry, it was wonderful speaking today and happy to connect. Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
We have a wonderful day.
Thank you. So that brings us to an end for today. But if you did enjoy the event, we do have a conference coming up in Berlin in May. And we also have one in New York in May as well. So if you do like the concept of working together and bringing people together, please do consider joining us there. And if not, I'll see you at the next UXDX Online. Thank you very much.